Thank you, members and chair, for the, I'd say vice chair and Republican members, but Mr. Chavez, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I'm presenting AB 2419, the new University of California. In 1960, California adopted its master plan for higher education, a plan much touted as a grand advancement in the way public higher education was delivered. Clark Kerr, then president of the University of California, is quoted as stating that the goal of the master plan was to, quote, balance the competing demands of fostering excellence and guaranteeing educational access for all. Also, according to President Kerr, the underlying principles that were embodied in the plan were, that, again, quote, that some form of higher education ought to be available to all, regardless of their economic means, and that academic progress should be limited only by the individual proficiency and differentiation of function so that each of the three systems would strive for excellence in different areas so as to not waste public resource on duplicate efforts. Not much has happened in the world of public higher education since then, except that education has become much more expensive and middle-class students are finding it more and more difficult to find a place, especially at the University of California. For example, a recent state auditor report made the following key findings relative to the University of California. Despite a 52% increase in resident applicants, resident enrollment increased only by 10% over the last 10 years, while non-resident enrollment increased by 432%. The university lowered the admission standard for non-residents and admitted nearly 16,000 non-residents over the past 3 years, with lower academic scores than the upper half of admitted residents. Admitted residents were increasingly denied their campus of choice, yet admitted non-residents were always admitted to one of their campuses of choice. Mandatory fees doubled for residents while they increased for non-residents at a much lower rate. AB 2419 presents a radically new concept to the world of higher education, and like many radically new ideas, AB 2149 has been met by some with scoffs and scorns. Please suspend your judgment for just a moment and open your minds to a new way of thinking and a new way of education in our modern world of ubiquitous information and special knowledge through the internet. For centuries and even millennia, special knowledge has resided and was created in the minds of university professors and housed in the libraries of institutions of higher learning throughout the world. Students had to travel to those institutions and sit at the feet of those professors and pore over the tomes in the libraries in order to obtain that knowledge. When the institution determined that the student had obtained the requisite knowledge and skills, a certificate in the form of a college degree was awarded to the student. The advent of the internet has changed the whole concept of learning. Nearly all of the special knowledge of the world is now or is quickly becoming available to anyone with access to the internet. What is sorely lacking is an institution that specializes in certifying competencies, certifying that a student is sufficiently knowledgeable to be deserving of a college degree. Furthermore, the changing 21st century job market suggests that the traditional undergraduate degrees may not adequately prepare young job seekers for the job market. With the rising costs of attending the traditional institutions of higher learning and the rising student debt that is apparent to everyone, a cheaper alternative where people with sufficient amount of knowledge or skills can acquire degrees and certifications without the need of attending these traditional institutions of learning is sorely needed. Enter the new University of California, the new segment of public higher education created by AB 2419. A better name for this institution might be the California Institute of Competency Certification, and I'd be happy to take amendment today if that would get the chair's support for the bill. This segment of higher education would specialize in awarding college and university credit on the passage of specially designed exams. There would be no classrooms and no professors. Students could acquire the requisite skill and knowledge wherever they desire, and when they think they are ready, they would personally appear at a testing center administered by this new institution. Upon passing the exam, the applicant would be awarded a college or university credit. When a sufficient number of credits have been thus acquired, a college or university degree would be awarded to that student. The only cost for this service would be the costs to create and administer the exams, a far cry from the cost of maintaining the grand edifices and grounds of university campuses, along with the administration and personnel necessary to operate them. Most colleges and universities currently allow some form of credit by exam. They offer credits towards graduation from satisfactory exam scores from the advancement placement and international baccalaureate exams. In addition to that, my son is an engineering student at San Diego State and has clept several of his classes, and I think has acquired more than 12 units of credit. This bill goes one step further and creates an institution that offers college degrees through satisfactory examination results. As the world changes, the institutes of higher education must change with it, and an institution like the new University of California could meet the challenges of that new world economy. It could also lend itself to the notion of creating custom degrees created by those seeking special graduates to meet the needs of new technology and new business opportunities. An employer could simply list the competencies necessary for the new job, and the new university could cobble together a series of exams that would fit the bill. Please take a step with me into an innovative world of higher education and vote aye for AB 2419. And today I have one witness, Nick Lorette de Mola.
Very, very close.
And with some personal testimony on this concept.
Yeah, thank you very much, Assemblyman, and thank you to Chairman Medina and to the committee for letting me speak to you today. I've come here today as someone who lives every day with the fear of what could happen if just one thing goes wrong, because I do not have a degree. When I was 18 years old, I slept in my 1989 Dodge Shadow in the ice-cold nights on the side roads between the seacoast of New Hampshire and Boston. I was admitted to a university, but I dropped out in order to pay my bills and build a little bit of a better life for myself, moving out of my car at that point. I spent the next 13 years working my way up the ladder at various retail and sales establishments. I redefined analytics and business engagement through my work at Barnes & Noble. I was a liaison with Accenture for Raley's Supermarkets, promoting lean manufacturing principles in the grocery industry. I coordinated sales, marketing, and merchandising for Apple campus stores across Northern California. I became one of the fastest success stories in the history of CBS Radio Sacramento in their sales department. And I'm now a nationally recognized expert in workforce development, and am the chief point person for a national communication strategy to promote workforce development on a variety of platforms. I've testified numerous times on legislation here at the state.
But you only have 1 minute here.
And I'm going to wrap up for you. By any measure, my story is a story of redemption and success. The concept behind this bill would change my life. It would make it so that I could. I'm sure that there are thousands of stories from around the state just like mine with intelligent, capable people who didn't get breaks early in life and have had to work extraordinarily hard for whatever salary we can get.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Any questions or comments? And I'm not sure if there's a witness in support, opposition.
Hi, Jill Rice with California Federation of Teachers. And
What? Please come up.
Sorry, Jill Rice with the California Federation of Teachers, and we're in opposition to this bill. The funding crisis that faces our higher education institutions is already critical, and to take a new segment and draw funds away from the existing segments is unconscionable. California's world-class higher education system is due in no small part to the extraordinary expertise and efforts of all of its faculty and staff. And to suggest that an entire bachelor's degree worth of institutions can be replaced by test prep courses and standardized tests is both inconsistent with and an insult to the University of California and California State University systems. And for these reasons, we encourage a no vote.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition? Any questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none. Mr. Jones, would you like to close?
Sure, thank you. Just one comment, or two comments in response to the opposition. I take extreme exception to the comment that this is insulting to the University of California. I think that's an extreme exaggeration. The University of California is, I think, world-renowned and recognized as one of the most innovative educational institutions in the world. And to make the argument that they're not capable or that this is insulting to them, I just take extreme exception to that, because I think they are world-renowned. I agree with that, and I think they are very innovative, and this would fall right in line with their continued innovation. Also, in response to the opposition that this is going to negatively impact the funding of the other institutions, you'd have to look at if you so imagine the market of higher education, the number of students that are seeking higher education either through CSU or the UC system. That is not a static number. That's a dynamic number. And so by offering this type of institution, that number of people is not set. The pie is not one size, and that you're going to be taking people out of that system and putting them in this system, thus eliminating funding for that system. What you're going to be doing is expanding the size of the pie, expanding the size of the market for higher education, and making the opportunity for that world-renowned education that the University of California is known for available to a larger segment of the California residents and the students that are doing the very best that they can now to get that higher education. And with that, I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. You started your presentation, Mr. Jones, by referring to Clark Kerr, someone I admire, 1960, the master plan. I don't disagree that we need to revisit the master plan. Agree with you on that. But as a teacher, I know that there is a role for credit by examination, but I don't think it can or should not replace a college education. So for that reason, I'm unable to support your bill today.
Move the bill. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Lender, second by Ms. Baker.
Mr. Williams.
Mr. Williams.
Sorry, we've all had to exist in multiple places at once today. So, though I'm not supporting the bill today because I think it goes too far, I do want to talk a little bit in defense of some of the intent. We do have a system where we all too often waste students' time. We do not use testing adequately in order to determine where in the course of a 4 or 6 year education a student should be placed. And so I don't think testing can be, I agree 100% with the chair that I don't think testing can replace a college education, but we do need to be using testing more often to figure out where to place a student. Some students are proficient enough to be able to go to the second course in a series of coursework, and we really don't use that opportunity at the same time that we don't have enough space for all our students. And so I think this bill goes way too far, so I can't support it today, but I do think there is some merit in talking about the issue. Just wanted to say that in your defense.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Secretary?
Medina?
No.
Medina, no. Baker? Aye. Baker, aye. Bloom? No. Bloom, no. Chavez? Irwin? No. Irwin, no. Jones Sawyer? No. Jones Sawyer, no. Levine? Linder? Yes. Linder, aye. Lowe? Aye. Lowe, aye. Olson? Aye. Olson, aye. Santiago? No. Santiago, no. Weber? Williams? No. Williams, no.
Hang on a second. Hang on.
I appreciate Mr. Lowe. I just want everybody to know that.
Okay. Okay.
I appreciate everybody. It's been
4-6.
4-6. 4-6. Your bill is on call. I hope it's still been a happy day.
So what I need 2 more votes. I just need to sway 2. Is that what the deal is? I'm just. Mr. Chairman, I do thank you for your comments, and Mr. Williams also, and I think while I was hoping for a positive outcome here, I think the conversation's been started, and I think we'll have be able to move in a positive direction on some smaller items. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We have Mr. Yeah. Yep. So, item 1, Mr. McCarty.
We have 2 bills. Can I do 1711 first?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. First, I'd like to thank the chair and the committee staff for working with us the last few weeks to help make this a stronger bill. Move the bill. Okay. In sum, this measure seeks to increase access for Californians attending the University of California by having a fair ratio of California resident students and non-residents. To address the concerns of some members of this committee, we specifically state that a few things from our last hearing. One, we would have a set aside for this policy during a recession when we have a negative appropriation for the state of California for the university system. We would also state that any campus that currently exceeds 15% but doesn't increase over the prior year would have no penalty. And we specify that 50% of new revenues generated from new undergraduates after a 4-year transition, half of the money would go back to the UC system to expand undergraduate enrollment. And then lastly, an issue that's going to be addressed in a moment by our state auditor, dealing with the issue of non-resident students enrolling the UC system with qualifications that aren't up to par of California residents, which is not in accord with a master plan. We want to specify that that shall not be allowed. We think that this addresses the growing trend of, frankly, these policies rationing access for California students, and we think it's a fair approach and one that deserves consideration in this committee, and also will be addressing this in the state budget process. With me today are representatives from the state auditor's office to talk about their findings. Thank you.
And before you begin, just to remind that we have 1 minute apiece.
Thank you, Mr. Member. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee. My name is John Byer with the State Auditor's Office. With me is Kathleen Fullerton. And last month, we issued an audit on the University of California dealing with its admission of non-residents and other issues. And one of the findings of our audit was that the university had increased the admission of non-residents over the past 4 years by about 182%, while at the same time, the admission of resident students only increased by about 4%. A number of reasons were we found to be the cause of that. One of them was the issue that Mr. McCarty just spoke about, the lowering of the academic standards for non-resident students, the change to this policy that the UC calls compare favorably. And over the past 3 years, what we found is that there were 16,000 students, non-resident students, that were admitted to the university with lower academic qualifications than resident students. And we made a number of recommendations in our report. One of them was to place a percentage limit on non-resident students, and a couple others dealing with transparency issues as far as reporting the qualifications of students that were admitted that have lower qualifications than Californian residents. So,
thank you. Next witness. Is there another witness?
No, we're okay.
Support?
Thank you.
She's with me.
Okay. Any other witnesses in support? No. Witnesses in opposition. Please come on up.
Chair and members, Nadia Leal Carrillo with the University of California. We have not had an opportunity to conduct a full analysis of the language in the bill, given that it was just made available to us this morning. However, based on the quick review of the language, we believe we still continue to have deep concerns with the provisions in the bill, specifically a system-wide non-resident cap of 15.5%. We don't believe that is going to allow our campuses below that cap to grow as intended in the bill. We also believe that as a result of the cap, the campuses who are, or the redistribution of the tuition revenue provision in the bill is actually going to impact only a small number of our campuses and thus impact our ability to provide a quality education. We're also concerned with the admission policy and the reporting requirement in the bill. We believe it may roll back our ability to consider other contributing factors in a student's application for admission to the university and essentially put more emphasis on standardized test scores and GPA as a result. So we'll continue to have, obviously, looking more at the language as the bill moves forward, but wanted to at least give you a brief summary of where we think the concerns remain. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition? Questions, comments from the committee? Mr. Williams.
It's just a question of the auditor. The language that you guys have used is pretty direct, and you say that the in-state students have been disadvantaged. And I really need to ask the question, you imply that there would be able to be more in-state students able to be enrolled if you had fewer out-of-state students. When the UC gains money from out-of-state students that they can use for multiple purposes, including financial aid for in-state students, how would one enroll more in-state students if they had enrolled fewer out-of-state students?
There's a couple of issues with that. One of them is that the UC has never given a kind of metric or a measure of how many non-resident students it enrolls and the number of resulting resident enrollment that it's increased. Over the time when it was increasing the enrollment of non-resident students, the number of non-residents were not increasing by any measurable proportion. So there's that issue. The second issue is that the UC has the means to save internally, and we really think that it needs to look internally and try to use some of its own savings and efficiencies to try to make savings available to enroll more resident students.
And that's interesting that you link that. I mean, that isn't really that doesn't relate at all to how many out-of-state students. That's just efficiencies of scale that we all would love all bureaucracies to achieve. And you make some great recommendations in the report about that. But during the same period of time, the CSU reduced enrollment to the point of not enrolling over 30,000 students that they should have in order to comply with the master plan. So actually UC keeping pace with in-state enrollment was substantially better than what the CSU was doing at the same time with the same funding, and yet we don't get mad at them for, closing the door on 32,000 in-state students per year. Instead, we get mad at the UC for a dysfunctional way to adapt to the fact that the state legislature gave them less money. I continue to find this a pretty disingenuous way to blame the UC for the problem created by the legislature and the governor at the time, which is not this current governor, but that we could solve collectively if the legislature and this current governor chose to, which is to fund in-state enrollment so that we can not only keep pace with the master plan, but we could do better. I think that this bill is better because of the standards, addressing the standards question that the author has taken, the amendments, but it's still based off of a faulty premise that we would actually be able to enroll more in-state students if we just reduced out-of-state students. Mathematically, that is not possible, and I just find it a convenient way to shift the blame, and I can't support it.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ordinarily, I agree with my colleague from Santa Barbara, and I still agree that in order to significantly affect enrollment at UC, we have to greatly increase state funding for the UC system in order to continue to add capacity for California students. Having said that, I appreciate the fact that you have very closely tied the bill to receiving additional funds in a budget appropriation for the UC system. I want to echo what my colleague said, that we as a legislature have to continue to work with both ourselves, with the UC, and with the administration to increase investment in the UC system in order to increase capacity within the UC system and meet the goals of the Master Plan for Higher Education in terms of making sure that every California student who's eligible has a slot within the system. Nevertheless, as we've seen in the auditor's report, the gap has grown so tremendously that I agree with you, it's simply no longer acceptable to let it continue. When we have seen over 400% of an increase in out-of-state students at, I would say, at the expense of California students, or even instead of California students, that's a problem. And so I appreciate that you're recognizing the need to increase state investment in the UC system while also setting benchmarks that clearly state California students are intended to be the priority when it comes to the university systems that our taxpayers fund. I believe the 15.5% cap, in fact, should be lower. The auditor, I believe, recommended 5%. I would suggest maybe 10% would be a good place to go. But I'm happy to support the bill today and appreciate your addition to the bill saying that admissions requirements certainly cannot be lower for non-resident students than they are for in-state students. So again, nothing's perfect, but I think this bill achieves a good compromise in recognition of the fact that we have to increase funding and at the same time make sure that we're prioritizing California students when it comes to admission standards. Urge and I vote from the committee.
Ms. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank Mr. McCarty for the amendments that he's made. I thank you also for adding myself and Ms. Olson on as bipartisan co-authors. It is a pleasure to get to work with you on this bill. I think it is not at all disingenuous. It really is trying to tackle the issue where we are now. And based on the actual testimony that we saw even in JLAC a few weeks ago, at which UC identified in its 2010 report on itself that we need to increase out-of-state students, but we really shouldn't go above 10% because we're going to start disadvantaging California students. That's from UC. That's one of the reasons why I'd be happy to support a lower cap of 10%. Just hold them to their own internal analysis that they did themselves of when they start harming our California students. And I appreciate your work on this. It's not the end. There's more we need to do, and look forward to an opportunity to get to work with you on it. But I did want to specifically thank you for adding bipartisan co-authors. I think it makes a stronger bill, and you in your own right have made it a stronger bill. Thank you.
I wanted to follow up, Mr. McCarty, on the issue that the UC brought up on how this bill impacts those campuses with those campuses like UC Riverside that I represent. How this bill impacts those campuses that have the lower out-of-state and international students. Does this bill negatively impact those campuses, and does it limit them in being able to bring in increasing, if they wanted to grow their number of
Yes.
out-of-state?
I don't believe so, and let me tell you why. It's just simple math. Last year in our budget, we voted on a state budget that increased enrollment funding for Californians by 5,000 slots. UC actually had a snafu where they enrolled 1,600 fewer Californians. So next year they have to enroll 6,600 more Californians. And the president has already stated that they want to freeze non-resident enrollment at Berkeley, UCLA, and San Diego. So with those three campuses, and those three campuses all have non-resident enrollment north of 20%. So with no more increased non-residents and more Californians, 800 50 each at those 3 campuses, the percentage is going to go down by a point to 1 point of each of those 3. And so Riverside, Merced, Santa Cruz, even Davis and Irvine and Santa Barbara all have the capacity to grow. And then secondly, that I want to take a little bit of different direction than what Mr. Williams said. We're not saying fewer non-residents. We're saying we should have a ratio. In other words, for every non-resident you enroll, you have to enroll a proportional amount of Californians, an 85 to 15%, so like, roughly a 5 to 1 or so ratio. So we can grow non-residents, but the premise is if you grow non-residents, also be able to grow slots for Californians.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Mr. McCarty, would you like to close?
No, just thank you. I know we had a long debate about this 3 weeks ago, and today I thought this is a much more thoughtful approach going forward, and I'm glad that we have a bipartisan approach working on this in the policy committee as well as our budget committee, and I look forward to pushing this issue forward in 2016. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we call the roll, I want to thank the author for bringing this forward and working with me. And point out and echo Mr. Williams and point out that the author is the person that needs to hear. Yes. The author is the person in subcommittee 2 that needs to hear, I think, the consensus of this committee, because we've heard it meeting after meeting from a bipartisan manner that all segments of higher education in the state of California deserve our support. And I am, co-author of this bill because I'm concerned that the growing number of California students have been crowded out of UC. But I agree with everyone who says that adequate state funding is vital. Adequate state funding to UC is vital for student success. But based on the recent actions to decrease resident enrollments while increasing non-resident enrollment, I believe legislative action is warranted, and I look forward with working with Mr. McCarty and UC and his subcommittee on making sure that there is room for every California student. And with that, Madam Secretary, if you would please call the roll.
Medina?
Aye.
Medina, aye. Baker? Aye. Baker, aye. Bloom? No. Bloom, no. Chavez? Irwin? Aye. Irwin, aye. Jones Sawyer? Aye. Jones Sawyer, aye. Levine? Linder? Aye. Linder, aye. Lowe? Aye. Lowe, aye. Olson? Aye. Olson, aye. Santiago? Aye. Santiago, aye. Weber? Williams? No. Williams, no.
8-2, the bill is out.
Thank you.
Mr. McCarty. And you have a second bill, item 8, 2017.